Derrel Jazz Johnson here, Fathers and Sons Magazine, RisinJazzSports.com, MSG Varsity. I'm here with Sheridan Hoops NBA columnist, Michael Scotto. Michael, how are you doing today?
Hey, what's going on, Derrel? Pleasure to be with you.
We're here at Barclays Center watching the Brooklyn Nets. It appears that they're on their way to their 9th win in 10 games in the month of January. In your opinion, what has been the key to their big turnaround?
Well, I think right now you're seeing Andre Kirilenko back healthy and the difference that he can make. He's like a Swiss Army knife on the court. He can do a little bit of everything. He doesn't do any one thing particularly extraordinarily, but he does everything very well. And he's a solid role player. And you're looking at Mirza Teletovic. This is a guy that, in my opinion, should be in competition for the three-point contest in the All-Star game this year. He's one of the best shooters that this league has. And I just think now with Garnett moving to center, it's helped his game. He's shooting around 70% at this point. And a guy like Paul Pierce going to power forward, it's enhanced his game as well. So you're seeing a lot of continuity now, and the chemistry is really picked up for this team right now.
Do you foresee, pull out your crystal ball right now, do you foresee, obviously not on this pace, but do you see them continuing to play well, or do you see them reverting back to the way that they played last year when they were about 10 games under 500?
Absolutely, Derrel. I think that this team has found their niche and what they like to do on offense. They're having a lot more success with ball movement right now. Jason Kidd is getting as much as he can out of these guys. It's just amazing that once the calendar hit January, all of a sudden this team kind of turned the switch. And I think that one of the biggest things is that they're healthy. Aside from Brook Lopez, of course, who's out, they found an identity. And that's something that they lacked in the early part of the season. And I expect that to continue because they have the talent on paper. So it should continue.
Let's take a trip on the Brooklyn Bridge over to Madison Square Garden. The New York Knicks followed up a 5-game winning streak with a 5-game losing streak. They appear to be on the verge of a win tonight. But why have they been so inconsistent this season?
Well, I think Carmelo would like to know that answer so that maybe he and the team can turn it around. But I think that you're seeing also they have a lot of injuries. Guys like Amari, Kmart going out of the lineup, Bargnani now with the torn ligament in his elbow, even Pablo Prigioni. This is a guy that's a floor general, and he was the closest thing that this team had to Jason Kidd as far as a veteran leader that can orchestrate the offense. So I think that they're really missing. They've missed him at times. And Carmelo's had to carry this team on his back offensively. And JR hasn't been there. He has not been the sixth man of the year that he was previously last year, whether that's due to recovering from his injury with his right knee. We don't know. It looks like that just because he hasn't been getting to the foul line. Same thing with Iman Shumpert. This is a guy that last year showed vast potential in the playoffs against the Indiana Pacers, but to this point, he's not lived up to the hype that we thought and maybe where he could take the next step in his development. So I think all those things combined, and Mike Woodson, he's been under some fire too as well for some rotational decisions. So once you have that together, you have quite the homemade stew.
So I'm going to ask you to pull out the crystal ball again. Do you see the Knicks turning it around, or do you see them floundering around, below 500? Do you see them making the playoffs this season?
Well, I'll say this. If they make the playoffs, it's not as much due to them as it is to the subpar Eastern Conference. There's only 4 teams currently right now with a record over 500, and 2 of those 4 teams are a game over 500. This is by no means the Western Conference, and I believe only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference would even qualify for the playoffs if they were in the West, and that's Miami and that's Indiana, the 2 elite teams in the Eastern Conference. And I think that when you look at the Knicks, they have the talent on paper to do it, but they've shown absolutely no signs of being able to play consistent, especially after the win streak. You start a homestand 0-3, and you have an 8-game homestand. And Carmelo said that this is the time when these guys should come together and really start to make a dent in this deficit that they're facing right now. So I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe that they'll do it. If they do, I would assume that they backed in, just based on where we are right now.
Final question. Tell us about some of the work you do with Sheridan Hoops and any predictions as far as who we'll see in the NBA Finals and winning a championship this year.
Sure. Well, for Sheridan Hoops, I'm a columnist covering the Brooklyn Nets as well as the New York Knicks. And, always here at the home games trying to get the story, see what's going on with these guys. And a little bit of the NBA, too. You never know what stories are going on nationally. If I get pulled for that, I've had a couple of Lakers stories. And a guy, Tony Roten, for Philadelphia 76ers, one of the most improved and Player of the Year candidates. And as far as who I could see in the finals, I would say Indiana right now is the team to beat in the East. And I think that this could be the year they finally knock off the Heat, much the way Michael Jordan and the Bulls finally got over the hump against the Detroit Pistons at one point. And coming out of the West, you know what? I want to see the Golden State Warriors go because they're a fun, exciting team. I think Stephen Curry is an underrated, if that's possible, an underrated point guard. We always think of him as a shooter and a lights-out scorer. He's a great floor general who's second in the league in assists right now. And I think that Mark Jackson has that team playing defense, something that we never saw over the previous decade with that team until he got there. And I think that he has them clicking. A guy like Andre Iguodala, David Lee, they have all the pieces in my mind and depth to make a run for at least the Western Conference Championship, in my opinion. And if they face the Pacers, I think that'd be a great series.
Let's put it on paper. I would love to see that. Thanks a lot for your time, Michael.
Absolutely, Derrel.